Hello there. Tonight, I'm delighted to be here to take you on a fascinating journey through the strange world of superstition. Have you ever wondered why number 7 is lucky, but breaking a mirror is bad luck? How about why you shouldn't shout out someone's name late at night from behind them? Well, beyond the impressive palaces, armies, and inventions of ancient China, people lived their daily lives guided by something invisible. Superstitions and omens. From reading the stars to fearing certain animals, the ancient Chinese believed the universe constantly sent them signs. And these signs could mean the difference between fortune and disaster, or even life and death. In this video, we're diving deep into the world of ancient Chinese superstitions and omens, what they were, how they shaped people's lives, and why many of them still influence Chinese culture and even global culture today. So sit back, get comfortable, and let's travel back in time to uncover the unseen world that ancient China lived by. If you enjoyed tonight's story, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a like, subscribe, or maybe comment on where you are listening from. Now sit back, relax, close your eyes, and we will begin our journey. In ancient China, the world was seen as deeply connected. Humans, nature, the heavens, and even the dead were all tied together. This belief system wasn't just religious. It was how people made sense of everything. Illness, success, storms, strange dreams. Everything had a cause, and that cause often came from the spirit world. People believed in yin and yang, the idea that opposite forces exist in everything. Balance was key. If something was out of balance, if there was too much yin or too much yang, bad things could happen. Superstitions and omens helped people know when that balance was being disturbed. Another key idea was the mandate of heaven. This belief said that emperors ruled because heaven gave them permission. But if the emperor did a bad job, like causing suffering or acting unfairly, heaven would send signs. These signs were omens like natural disasters, eclipses, or famines. To understand this supernatural world around them, the ancient Chinese turned to art of divination, trying to tell the future using special rituals. One of the earliest forms of divination in China was oracle bone reading. This practice dates back over 3,000 years to the Shang dynasty, somewhere between 1600 to 1046 BCE. Here's how it worked. Priests would carve questions into turtle shells or ox bones. The questions were about things like, will it rain tomorrow? Or, will the king win the war? Then, they'd heat the bones until they cracked. The shape of the cracks was believed to be a message from the gods or ancestors. These messages weren't just guesses. They were carefully recorded and stored. Some scholars say this system even helped develop early Chinese writing. Another method was reading the I Ching, or Book of Changes. It's one of the oldest books in the world. People used yarrow sticks or coins to generate hexagrams, which were 6-line symbols. Each hexagram had a specific meaning. People believed it could guide them in making decisions, everything from marriages to battles. Both oracle bones and the I Ching show that people in ancient China took omens very seriously. These weren't just bedtime stories. They influenced real-life actions, including decisions made by emperors and generals. The natural world was full of omens. For example, a solar eclipse was seen as a bad sign, especially for rulers. In fact, during the Han Dynasty, astronomers were punished if they failed to predict eclipses. That's because an unexpected eclipse meant that the emperor might have lost heaven's favor. Animals also carried messages. The appearance of a phoenix, a mythical bird, was seen as a sign of peace and prosperity. But if a black crow appeared in your home or village, it could mean death was near. This was unfortunate, as clearly you were little more likely to see a crow than a phoenix. Dragons, those symbols of power, were also omens. A dragon's sighting, usually in a dream, meant something major was about to happen. It could be good or bad, depending on the dragon's behavior. If it flew high and calmly, it was a good sign. If it thrashed or breathed fire, trouble was coming. Snakes, bats, and owls were also seen differently depending on the region. In some areas, a bat flying into your house meant good luck. In others, it was bad. It meant a spirit had entered your home. Even the direction of the wind, the color of clouds, or strange animal behavior could all be read as signs from the heavens. People in ancient China believed a person's fate was influenced the moment they were born. Things like the year, month, day, and hour of birth were recorded. These details formed the Bazi, or 8 characters, which were used to tell someone's destiny. For example, being born in the year of the dragon was seen as lucky. Dragons were strong and noble, but being born during certain times of the tiger year could mean a life filled with danger or rebellion. Parents often consulted astrologers before naming their child. Some even delayed naming their baby until they received good omens. And if a baby was born during a thunderstorm or on the day of an eclipse, people believed that child would have a powerful but possibly tragic life. Dreams were another major source of omens. Ancient Chinese dream books were written to help people interpret them. Dreaming of water could mean wealth, unless the water was flooding. That meant trouble. Seeing your teeth fall out in a dream was believed to predict a death in the family. If someone had the same dream multiple times, it was taken seriously. Families might even visit a fortune teller to find out what the dream meant. Other signs came from daily life. For example, dropping chopsticks, sneezing before speaking, or hearing a dog howl at night could all be warnings. A mirror breaking, especially at night, was thought to attract ghosts. Even words and sounds were treated with care. The number 4 was often avoided because the word sounds like death in Chinese. Many buildings skipped the 4th floor for this reason. In ancient China, family wasn't just important, it was everything. And superstitions played a major role in how families made choices, especially around marriage, childbirth, and daily routines. Let's start with marriage. Marriages weren't just about love. They were about harmony, not just between 2 people, but between 2 families, and even the spiritual forces around them. Before a marriage could happen, both families would often consult a fortune teller or astrologer. The expert would compare the Bazi, the birth dates and times, of the bride and groom. If the signs didn't match, the marriage might be called off. Why? Because a bad match could bring misfortune, sickness, or even death. There were also special dates considered lucky or unlucky for weddings. Days linked with the number 8 were often seen as lucky because the word for 8, BA, sounds like the word for wealth, FA. But dates that included the number 4 were often avoided for the reasons we mentioned earlier. Once married, couples followed various customs to protect their home. For example, placing a pair of mandarin ducks, either real or carved, was believed to bring lifelong love. These ducks mate for life, so they symbolized fidelity and happiness. Superstitions even influenced how houses were built and where they were placed. In traditional Chinese culture, feng shui, meaning wind and water, guided the layout of homes, temples, and cities. It was believed that arranging things the right way could attract positive energy, known as qi, while protecting the space from bad luck. For example, placing the main entrance of a house in line with a straight road was considered dangerous. Why? Because straight paths were thought to allow bad spirits to travel directly into your home. To prevent this, people often built walls, hung mirrors, or planted trees to block the spirits. Mirrors themselves had special powers. They were thought to reflect not only light, but also evil spirits. Placing a mirror above a doorway could keep bad energy from entering the house. Sharp objects were also treated carefully. Knives and scissors were never given as gifts. Why? Because they were seen as tools that could cut relationships, and leaving scissors open in a home was believed to invite arguments or harm. House numbers, colors, and placement of furniture all had deeper meanings. For instance, red doors were common because red was seen as a lucky color that scared away bad spirits. North-facing homes were sometimes avoided because cold winds and misfortune were believed to come from the north. Even the layout of graves followed feng shui. Ancestors were to be buried in spots where the land formed a protective embrace, such as in valleys or near hills. A badly placed grave could cause bad luck for generations. Illness was another part of ancient Chinese, like that was shrouded by superstition. In ancient China, people didn't just go to doctors when they felt sick. They also turned to omens, superstitions, and spiritual remedies to stay healthy or recover. One key belief was that illness could be caused by ghosts or evil spirits. This was especially true for sudden illnesses or diseases with no clear cause. If someone became very sick out of nowhere, it was sometimes believed that they had offended an ancestor or attracted a wandering ghost. To treat these illnesses, people used more than herbs or acupuncture. They might call in a Taoist priest to perform a ritual. This could include chanting, burning incense, or using special charms to chase away the spirit. Another common practice was burning paper offerings. People believed these offerings would travel to the spirit world, calming angry ghosts or winning favor from ancestors. The paper items could represent food, money, or even clothes. Some people wore protective charms made of jade or bronze. Others hung bundles of herbs, like mugwort or garlic, above their doors to keep spirits away. Even the direction you slept in mattered. Sleeping with your head facing north was often discouraged, as it was associated with death. The idea of wind as a cause of illness was also very strong. Ancient Chinese medicine believed that catching a cold breeze, especially through an open window, could bring illness into the body. This belief still exists in some parts of modern China today. From illness to death and the afterlife, funerals in ancient China were also full of rituals and superstitions. The moment someone died, families entered a period of deep respect and caution. Every action mattered because it could affect the soul of the dead and the future of the living. First, the body was often left undisturbed for a period of time. This was partly respectful, but also based on the belief that the soul might still be nearby. People whispered instead of speaking loudly and avoided saying the person's name to avoid disturbing the spirit. Before burial, family members wore white, the traditional color of mourning. Red, which symbolized happiness and life, was strictly forbidden at funerals. One strong belief was that a cat or dog should never jump over a coffin. If this happened, it was believed the corpse could rise and become a ghost. To prevent this, animals were often kept far away during funeral preparations. Families often burned joss paper, also known as ghost money, to help the spirit in the afterlife. These rituals were done on specific days after death. The 7th, 49th, and 100th days were especially important. It was believed that the soul needed guidance and support during its journey. There were also signs believed to predict death. For example, if a mirror broke at night, or a clock suddenly stopped on its own, it was taken as a sign that death was near. Strange dreams, like seeing an ancestor calling your name, were also seen as warnings. And if a cicada cried near a window, some believed it meant a spirit was nearby, possibly collecting a soul. The spirit world was not seen as distant. People believed ghosts could visit the living often, especially if they died suddenly, without proper burial, or with unresolved emotions. To avoid attracting ghosts, people followed many rules. For example, you shouldn't whistle at night. It was believed the sound could call spirits to you. You also shouldn't call someone's name too loudly at night, especially from behind. The belief was that calling someone's full name could pull their soul out of their body, making it easier for spirits to harm them. During the Ghost Festival, held on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month, it was believed the gates of the underworld opened. Ghosts would roam the world for food, comfort, or revenge. During this time, people avoided swimming, stayed home at night, and left out offerings of food to keep spirits happy. Even shadows and reflections were treated carefully. A mirror left in a room with a dead body was often covered or removed. People feared that if the spirit saw its reflection, it might get trapped or angry. Ghost stories were passed down through generations, not just to entertain, but to teach caution, to respect the dead, follow rituals, and live in harmony with unseen forces. As you can see, ancient Chinese superstitions were deeply woven into every part of life, from birth to death, from building homes to treating sickness. But what happened when these beliefs clashed with politics, war, and power? In ancient China, no one was more powerful than the emperor. But even the emperor's rule was believed to depend on a higher force, heaven. The idea of the mandate of heaven shaped Chinese politics for over 2,000 years. It was a belief that heaven granted the right to rule to a just and moral leader. But if that leader became cruel or corrupt, heaven would withdraw its support. So how did people know if an emperor had lost heaven's favor? Through omens. Natural disasters, such as floods, droughts, earthquakes, and eclipses, were seen as direct messages from the heavens. If too many disasters happened under one ruler, the people might believe the emperor had become unworthy. For example, during the Zhou dynasty, a series of bad harvests and floods were seen as a sign that the previous Shang rulers had become corrupt. That belief helped the Zhou rise to power and claim the throne. They said the gods had passed the mandate to them instead. Throughout Chinese history, new dynasties often used the mandate of heaven to justify their rule. And old dynasties, once they started facing strange omens, usually didn't last long. Let's look more closely at some of the disasters that were believed to be signs from above. Eclipses, especially solar eclipses, were among the most feared omens. They were dramatic, unexpected, and seemed to show that something had gone terribly wrong in the cosmos. During the Han Dynasty, court astronomers were expected to predict eclipses in advance. If they failed, it was a serious matter. The emperor relied on these predictions to perform rituals that would calm the heavens. In one famous case, 2 royal astronomers, Hai and Ho, were executed because they didn't warn the court about an eclipse in time. Earthquakes were another major sign. Since they could destroy cities and kill thousands, people believed they only happened when the balance between heaven and earth was disturbed. Rulers often fasted or performed purification rituals after earthquakes to show they were seeking forgiveness from the heavens. Floods and droughts were also seen as omens of a ruler's failings. The great philosopher Confucius even said that the behavior of a ruler directly affected the natural world. If the emperor was just and fair, the land would be peaceful and fertile. But if he allowed corruption or neglected the people, the rivers would flood or the rains would stop. But omens weren't just about natural disasters. They were also believed to predict war and rebellion. Before a battle, generals and soldiers often watched for signs. A strange animal crossing the path, a sudden storm, or an unexpected illness in the camp could be taken as a warning from the spirit world. One famous example comes from the fall of the Han Dynasty. In the final years, there were multiple eclipses, comets in the sky, and plagues across the empire. Many believed these were signs that the dynasty's time had ended. Soon after, warlords rose up, and the kingdom broke apart. Rebels also used omens to gain followers. In the Yellow Turban Rebellion, sometime during 184 CE, the leaders claimed that a new era was beginning, marked by heavenly signs like floods and disease. They said the Han Dynasty had lost the mandate and that a new ruler was chosen by the gods. Many people believed them, not just because of politics, but because of the disasters happening all around them. Even during the later Ming Dynasty, when comets or red skies appeared, rumors spread that a change in leadership was coming. Some emperors even tried to hide news of such omens to avoid unrest. Because of how seriously omens were taken, emperors often made big decisions based on them. If a bad omen occurred, the emperor might issue a public apology, called a self-criticism edict. This was a letter to the people, saying the ruler was reflecting on his mistakes and would try to improve. He might fire corrupt officials, release prisoners, or order temples to perform special prayers to restore harmony. These acts weren't just for show. They were important symbols that the emperor respected heaven's will and was working to fix the balance. In some cases, emperors even stepped down temporarily after seeing repeated bad omens. They would leave the palace, fast, and live simply for a time to cleanse their soul and show humility. One emperor from the Tang Dynasty, Emperor Xuanzong, did this after multiple earthquakes and fires hit the capital. He believed the disasters were signs that he had become too indulgent and needed to reform his behavior. Yet, to understand these omens, emperors didn't work alone. They had teams of astronomers, diviners, and scholars whose job was to observe the heavens and explain what the signs meant. These experts were highly respected, but their jobs came with serious pressure. A wrong interpretation could lead to mass panic or even punishment. They used special instruments like armillary spheres, water clocks, and star charts to map out the sky. If they spotted a comet, they'd check its color, direction, and shape to figure out what it meant. A red comet in the west might signal war. A white comet near the Emperor's star might mean illness or betrayal. Dream interpreters were also important. If an emperor had a strange dream, like flying, falling, or seeing mythical creatures, he might call a team of dream readers to explain it. Some scholars combined astrology, I Ching readings, and Confucian values to give advice on whether a policy or war plan was supported by the heavens. However, omens weren't only feared by rulers, they were also used as tools of control. If an emperor wanted to show that his rule was supported by heaven, he might claim to have seen a good omen. For example, reports of a phoenix or unicorn, rare mythical animals, were often announced during peaceful times to show that heaven was pleased. In the Han Dynasty, a glowing star seen over the palace was reported as a sign of divine approval. Coins were even made to commemorate it. In other cases, Local officials might invent omens to gain favor with the emperor. If a town needed support or resources, a magistrate might claim that a dragon was seen in the local river, hoping it would bring attention and funding from the court. This shows that not all omens were accepted blindly. There was often a mix of belief and strategy in how signs were reported and used. But whether believed fully or not, the idea of omens gave rulers a powerful way to explain the world and justify their decisions. So as we've seen, superstitions and omens weren't just personal beliefs. In ancient China, they were deeply tied to politics, leadership, and the fate of empires. The heavens weren't just watching, they were communicating, and emperors ignored these signs at their own risk. While emperors consulted the stars and issued edicts after disasters, everyday people in ancient China had their own ways of dealing with the unseen. Superstitions weren't just for big events. They shaped daily life, from planting crops to doing business or planning a trip. Let's start with something simple: daily routines. In villages across China, people believed that certain actions were unlucky at certain times. For example, it was considered bad luck to sweep the floor on the first day of the new year. Why? Because sweeping could sweep away your good fortune. On that day, people avoided cleaning, throwing out trash, or even saying unlucky words. Words themselves were powerful. Saying things like death, loss, or broken during important events could bring bad luck. That's why people often used coded language to avoid negative words. Even today, Chinese people are careful about language during holidays or weddings. Another daily belief was that you shouldn't point at the moon. Parents would tell children that if they pointed at the moon, it would cut their ear in their sleep. This might sound strange, but it served a purpose. It was a way to teach kids to respect nature and the heavens. In ancient times, most people were farmers. Their lives depended on nature, and nature was full of signs. A good harvest could mean survival. A bad one could mean starvation. So it's no surprise that farmers paid close attention to omens and seasonal superstitions. For instance, if frogs croaked early in spring, it was believed that the rainy season would come sooner than expected. If crickets chirped loudly at night, it might mean a dry season was coming. The lunar calendar included special days tied to agriculture. One important day was Lichun, or the beginning of spring. On this day, farmers watched the weather closely. A warm, sunny day meant a good harvest year. A storm or sudden chill was taken as a warning. Animals were also used to predict weather. If ants built high mounds, people believed it meant heavy rain was coming. And if birds flew low, it was thought that storms were near. Offerings were sometimes made to local gods or spirits before planting crops. Farmers might burn incense or leave rice wine at the edge of the field, asking for blessings. Merchants and travelers also had their own set of beliefs. Travel in ancient China could be risky. Bad weather, bandits, or illness were all real dangers. So people often looked for signs before setting out. One common practice was to check the almanac, or tongshu, a book that listed lucky and unlucky days for every kind of activity: travel, business, marriage, building a house, and more. People would often delay a journey if the almanac said the day was unlucky. Before starting a business, merchants might consult a fortune teller or burn incense to the god of wealth. Shops would hang red banners with auspicious phrases like prosperity or abundance. It was also common to keep a statue of a lucky figure, like a laughing Buddha or the three-star gods, Fu, Lu, Shu, to attract good energy. Charms were another key part of daily superstition. People wore jade pendants, believed to protect the body and spirit. Children were often given small silk pouches filled with herbs or coins, called shangbao, to keep away evil spirits. Coins with square holes in the center, called cash coins, were tied together with red string and hung in homes or shops to invite wealth. Some people even tied them under their clothes or carried them in wallets as protection. When it came to children in ancient China, they were expected to honor their family and bring pride through education. But from birth onward, their lives were surrounded by beliefs meant to guide their future and protect them. When a child was born, the family would look for signs to predict their personality. If the baby cried loudly, it was considered a sign of strength. If the child was born with a birthmark in a certain spot, such as on the back or foot, it might be taken as a sign they were marked by fate for something special. Some children were given milk names that sounded silly or humble, like little dog or ugly one. Why? The idea was to trick evil spirits into ignoring them. If a child was believed to be too pretty or promising, spirits might get jealous and cause harm. A plain name helped keep the child invisible to those spirits. When a child started school, the family might perform a ritual to honor Confucius, the great teacher. They might also choose an auspicious day for the first lesson and dress the child in red or yellow for good luck. Dreams before exams were also taken seriously. If a child dreamed of climbing stairs, it meant academic success. But if they dreamed of falling or losing a book, it could mean failure, or at least bad luck. Another part of ancient Chinese culture governed by superstition were its festivals. Nearly all of them come with superstitions and rituals. These traditions weren't just for celebration. They were meant to protect, guide, and bring balance. Let's look at a few examples. Lunar New Year, Spring Festival. This is the most important holiday. Before the new year, people cleaned their homes to sweep away the old year's bad luck, but not on the first day. Firecrackers were set off to scare away Nyan, a mythical beast that was said to eat people. Red paper, lanterns, and decorations were used to frighten off evil and attract fortune. Dragon Boat Festival. Held in the 5th month, this festival was originally about warding off disease and evil spirits. People hung bundles of mugwort and calamus above their doors to protect the household. Children were given pouches with herbs or charms. Sticky rice dumplings called zongzi were thrown into rivers to feed restless spirits. Mid-Autumn Festival. While now known for mooncakes and family gatherings, this festival was once a time to watch for signs in the moon. If the moon appeared reddish, it was seen as a bad omen. Moon gazing was both romantic and spiritual. People believed the moon could connect them to loved ones far away, or even to ancestors. Ghost Festival, Zhongyuan Festival. As mentioned before, this was the time when spirits were believed to walk the earth. People burned joss paper, left out food offerings, and avoided doing anything risky, like swimming or traveling at night. Plays and operas were performed outdoors to entertain the ghosts, and the first row of seats was always left empty for the spirit audience. In addition to religion and philosophy, ancient China had a rich tradition of folk magic. This wasn't just about tricks. It was a system of beliefs and rituals that helped people feel protected and in control of their lives. Talismans were commonly used. These were pieces of paper or cloth with symbols and words written by a Taoist priest. Some were burned and the ashes mixed with water to drink. Others were carried or pinned to clothing. People believed these could protect against ghosts, illness, or even bad luck in love or exams. Curses and counter-curses were also part of folk belief. If someone believed they were cursed, perhaps by a jealous neighbor, They might go to a healer who performed rituals to break the spell. This could include burning incense, chanting, drawing protective circles with rice or salt, or using animal bones or coins. Sound was another tool. Bells, gongs, and firecrackers weren't just for celebration. Their loud noises were thought to scare away spirits and reset the energy in a space. And in many homes, shrines were built to honor local gods, ancestors, or famous heroes. Offerings of incense, fruit, and tea were given regularly to keep the spirits happy and the household safe. For the common people of ancient China, life wasn't easy. Floods, sickness, famine, and war were constant threats. But through superstitions, rituals, and omens, people found meaning and comfort in the chaos. They believed that by watching for signs and following the right traditions, they could protect their families, guide their futures, and live in harmony with the forces of the universe. Behind many superstitions in ancient China are the myths and legends that gave them meaning. These stories explained where omens came from, why spirits behaved a certain way, and how people should protect themselves. Let's begin with the heavens. In Chinese mythology, the Jade Emperor rules over the gods. He lives in a heavenly palace and watches over both the spirit world and the mortal world. If the Jade Emperor was pleased, people believed the land would flourish. If he was angry, he might send signs like floods, lightning, or disease as warnings. Then there's Nuwa, the goddess who created humans. According to legend, she shaped people from yellow clay and later repaired the sky after a great disaster. The story of Nuwa helped explain the idea that nature and humanity are connected, and that balance must always be restored after chaos. There are also stories of gods who punished the wicked and rewarded the good. These tales taught people to behave in moral ways, and often involved omens as part of the story. Many Chinese deities were worshipped for specific blessings, wealth, health, safety, or victory. Let's look at a few that were closely tied to superstitions and daily life. Caitian, the god of wealth. He was often shown riding a black tiger and holding a golden rod. On New Year's Day, people would set off firecrackers and make offerings to Caitian, hoping he would visit their homes first and bring prosperity. It was bad luck to turn your back on his altar, especially during a New Year ritual. Guan Yu, the god of war. Originally a real general during the late Han Dynasty, Guan Yu became a symbol of loyalty and righteousness. Shrines to him were placed in shops and government buildings. Many believed he could protect them from dishonesty or evil spirits. Zhao Jun, the kitchen god. He lived in the home and reported each family's behavior to the Jade Emperor every year. Before the report, families would smear honey on his statue's mouth, hoping he would only speak sweetly of them. It was considered very unlucky to insult or ignore Zhao Jun. Tudigong, the earth god. Every village and neighborhood had its own Tudigong. People made offerings of fruit and incense at small roadside shrines to ask for safety, especially during planting season or long journeys. These gods weren't just symbolic. People believed they were present in everyday life, watching, judging, and sometimes warning. Death was another part of ancient Chinese life deeply affected by superstition. In Chinese belief, death was not the end. The soul continued to exist and needed to be treated with respect. Failure to do so could result in restless spirits, what you and I might call ghosts. Ghosts, or gui, were often thought to be souls of those who died with unfinished business, such as revenge, love, or injustice. They might also be people who died suddenly, without a proper burial, or during a tragic event like war or natural disaster. One of the most feared types of ghosts was the hungry ghost. These spirits wandered the world in pain, looking for food or offerings. During the ghost festival, people made offerings to these souls so they wouldn't cause harm. Ignoring them was considered dangerous, and signs like food spoiling quickly or strange smells in the house were believed to show a ghost's presence. People also believed that mirrors could trap souls. That's why mirrors were often covered in homes where someone had recently died. Reflections were believed to confuse or anger spirits. Cemeteries were places of both respect and fear. People avoided visiting graves at night, and children were warned not to point at tombstones or step on them. It was believed that such actions could bring a curse or illness. Animals were also not just physical creatures in ancient Chinese thought. They could also be spiritual beings, messengers, or even shapeshifters. The fox spirit, Hulijing. This creature could take the form of a beautiful woman or young man. In many stories, fox spirits seduced people, stole their energy, or caused confusion. But not all fox spirits were evil. Some were seen as wise and magical. Still, seeing a fox, especially at night, was usually considered a bad omen. The white snake, Baishe. This is another famous shape-shifting creature. One legend tells of a white snake spirit who fell in love with a human man. Their love was deep, but it ended in tragedy. The story highlights themes of fate, balance, and the danger of crossing between worlds. Tigers were feared and respected. In Taoist beliefs, the white tiger guarded the west and represented metal and autumn. A tiger crossing your path could mean a challenge ahead, or protection, depending on the context. Bats, oddly enough, were seen as symbols of luck because the word for bat, few, sounds like the word for blessing. Few. Artwork often included 5 bats to represent the 5 blessings: longevity, wealth, health, virtue, and a peaceful death. People often looked for strange animal behavior as omens. If a dog barked for no reason, or a bird flew into your house, it was often interpreted as a spiritual sign, sometimes warning of death or bad fortune. Chinese belief also saw the rest of the natural world as alive with spirits. Mountains, rivers, lakes, and even rocks were not just scenery. They were sacred. Some of the most important places in Chinese culture are the 5 sacred mountains, each tied to a direction, an element, and spiritual power. Mount Tai, east, life, rebirth, and sunrise. Mount Heng, south, fire and summer. Mount Hua, west, metal and strength. Mount Heng, north, darkness and danger. Mount Song, center, balance and harmony. People believed that gods lived in these mountains and that strange sights or sounds, like glowing lights or unseasonal flowers, were signs that the spirit world was close. Rivers also had spirits. The Yellow River, known as China's Sorrow, was respected and feared for its floods. People believed that if the river became angry, it was because the local people had offended its spirit. Rituals were held to calm the river god and avoid disaster. Before building a bridge or dam, officials often performed offerings to the river spirit, sometimes even involving human sacrifices in ancient times. Later, paper figures or animals were used instead. Also in Chinese tradition, certain people who lived heroic or noble lives were believed to become gods or protective spirits after death. One famous example is Qu Yuan, a poet and statesman who drowned himself in protest during the Warring States period. His death inspired the Dragon Boat Festival, where people throw rice dumplings into rivers to feed his spirit and race dragon boats to keep his ghost company. Another is Mazu, a fisherman's daughter who became a sea goddess. After saving her family from a storm with her spirit powers, she was worshipped by sailors and merchants across southern China. Even today, many coastal towns have temples to Mazu. These legends helped connect ordinary people to the world of the divine. They showed that humans could rise above fate and become something greater, often leaving behind omens, miracles, or signs of their presence. From gods and ghosts to spirit animals and sacred rivers, myths were the foundation of many superstitions in ancient China. They gave meaning to strange events, explained unexplainable things, and taught people how to act when facing the unknown. Even though thousands of years have passed since the time of emperors and oracle bones, many ancient Chinese superstitions still exist today, just in new forms. Some of the beliefs have changed a little, while others have been passed down almost unchanged. You can find them in homes, offices, public buildings, and even online. These superstitions have become part of Chinese identity and are especially noticeable during key moments, like starting a business, getting married, or celebrating a holiday. Let's explore how other ancient ideas still shape daily life in the modern world. In ancient China, numbers were more than math. They were symbols of fate. This belief is still very strong in modern Chinese culture, especially when it comes to real estate, phone numbers, license plates, and important dates. The number 8. This is the most favored number. It sounds like the word for wealth or prosper, so people go out of their way to get phone numbers, apartment units, or license plates with lots of 8s. During the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the opening ceremony began on August 8, 2008 at 8:08 p.m. on purpose. The number 4, still widely avoided because it sounds like the word for death. Many buildings in China, especially hospitals and hotels, skip the 4th floor entirely, going from 3 straight to 5. The number 9. In the past, 9 was considered a powerful number, associated with emperors and dragons. Today, it's often used in love messages because it sounds like long-lasting. Saying "I love you" in numbers 5201-314 has become a popular digital phrase. It means "I love you for a lifetime." These number superstitions affect real estate prices, wedding dates, and even when people launch companies or products. No holiday shows the survival of superstition better than Lunar New Year, also known as the Spring Festival. This is a time when people are extra careful to do the right things and avoid bad luck. Common practices include wearing red. Red was believed to scare away evil spirits, especially the monster Nian from ancient legends. Today, people still wear red clothes and decorate their homes in red during New Year for luck. Avoiding negative actions. On the first day of the New Year, people avoid swearing, crying, or breaking anything. Dropping a bowl or glass is bad luck. If it happens, the person must say peace every year to counter the bad omen. Giving lucky money. Red envelopes filled with even amounts of money are given to children and unmarried adults, but never give an amount that includes the number 4. Cleaning before, not during. Homes are cleaned thoroughly before New Year's Day to remove old misfortune, but no sweeping or taking out trash on New Year's Day. It's believed to sweep away your fresh luck. These customs may sound like tradition, but they are deeply rooted in ancient superstitions. Ancient beliefs about fortune, balance, and harmony are also still powerful in the world of modern Chinese business. Before opening a store, launching a company, or signing a major contract, it's common for business owners to check the almanac, the tongshu, or Chinese calendar of lucky and unlucky days, is still consulted regularly today. It tells you the best days to move, open a shop, or hold a ceremony. Invite a feng shui master. Especially in Hong Kong and Taiwan, businesses hire feng shui consultants to arrange office furniture, entrances, and desks in ways that invite good energy. A bad layout could be blamed for lost deals or poor employee morale. Perform lion dances. New store openings often include traditional lion dances and the setting off of firecrackers. This comes from ancient beliefs that the noise and lion spirits drive away evil and attract wealth. Choose the right company name. Names that include characters like Fortune, Smooth, or Prosper are more likely to attract customers and investors. Even modern tech companies may avoid certain launch dates, choose lucky numbers for pricing, or incorporate ancient symbols in their branding. Weddings today still also follow many traditional customs based on ancient omens and superstitions. Here's what's still common. Choosing the wedding date. Many couples, especially in mainland China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong, consult astrologers or use the lunar calendar to find a lucky day. Avoiding dates during ghost month or on days tied to bad numbers is still important. Red everything. Brides often wear red or include red in their clothing. Red decorations, flowers, and envelopes are everywhere to keep evil spirits away and attract happiness. Avoiding bad omens. No crying during wedding preparations. If someone breaks something, they immediately say lucky words. Also, pregnant women or people in mourning are often discouraged from attending weddings, as their presence could bring imbalanced energy. Bridal chamber rituals. In some regions, the bed is arranged by a woman of good fortune, someone with living parents, a happy marriage, and healthy children. Certain fruits, like apples, pomegranates, and peanuts, are placed under the bed as fertility symbols. These practices keep the idea of balancing yin and yang, fortune, and spiritual harmony alive in modern marriages. You can also see ancient superstitions in the architecture of modern Chinese cities and homes. In urban planning, curved roads and entryways are often used to block straight-line paths that might let in negative energy or sha qi. Buildings with gaps in them, like the famous Dragon Gates in Hong Kong skyscrapers, are designed based on feng shui. The idea is that dragons fly through these gaps, and blocking their path would anger the spirits. In homes and apartments, mirrors are placed carefully, never directly opposite the front door or a bed. A mirror facing a bed is thought to disturb sleep and attract spirits. Beds are not placed under beams, as it's believed this puts pressure on the person sleeping and can lead to illness or stress. Fish tanks and fountains are placed near entrances to collect wealth, since flowing water is linked to cash flow in feng shui beliefs. Plants like lucky bamboo and money trees are popular gifts and decorations to encourage growth, peace, and good fortune. Even in high-rise condos, many people request certain floors or unit numbers based on superstition. Developers sometimes charge more for lucky numbered units, or skip unlucky floors entirely. Ancient superstitions have also made their way into modern pop culture. In Chinese horror films, superstitions are everywhere. Ghosts appear after the ghost festival, mirrors show spirits, and cursed objects cause misfortune. These films often follow the same beliefs that were passed down from ancient times. Superstitions also shape digital behavior. For example, avoiding starting projects during Ghost Month, the 7th lunar month. Sharing well-wishing posts before exams, weddings, or birthdays. Using emojis or stickers based on ancient symbols like dragons, lanterns, or peaches, a symbol of long life. On platforms like WeChat or Douyin, Chinese TikTok, Content about what to do if you dream of snakes or how to avoid bad luck at your wedding still gets millions of views. That shows just how alive these beliefs still are. As we've seen, ancient Chinese superstitions are far from forgotten. They've evolved, adapted, and found a place in modern life, from skyscrapers to smartphones, from weddings to YouTube. These beliefs help people feel connected to the past, to their culture, and to something greater than themselves. Whether or not they're always taken seriously, they remain a meaningful part of daily life in Chinese communities around the world. While many of the superstitions we've explored are unique to Chinese culture, the idea of omens, signs, and unseen forces is truly global. Almost every ancient civilization had some system of interpreting the unknown. Whether it was gods, spirits, or the stars, humans everywhere have looked for patterns in the chaos of life. Let's compare Chinese superstitions with beliefs from other parts of the world, starting with numbers, dreams, and omens. As we've already seen, the number 4 is unlucky in China because it sounds like death, and 8 is lucky because it sounds like prosper. This kind of number symbolism isn't just found in Chinese culture. In Western cultures, the number 13 is often feared. Many buildings in the United States skip the 13th floor, just like buildings in China might skip the 4th. The fear of 13 even has a name: triskaidekaphobia. In Japan and Korea, the number 4 is also unlucky for the same reason as in China. It sounds like death in their languages too. Meanwhile, in Italy, the number 17 is unlucky. The Roman numeral 17 can be rearranged to spell vixi, which means I have lived, a phrase associated with death. On the other hand, numbers like 7 are often lucky in Western cultures. In Chinese culture, 7 is more complicated. It can be lucky, but during Ghost Month, the 7th lunar month, it's seen as dangerous. So while the actual numbers may change from place to place, the belief that numbers carry power is universal. In ancient China, dreams were full of meaning. Dreaming of falling teeth might signal a death. Dreaming of water could mean wealth or trouble, depending on the context. In ancient Egypt, dreams were considered messages from the gods. The Egyptians even had dream books with interpretations, just like in China. In ancient Greece, people believed dreams could predict the future. Temples called Asclepia allowed people to sleep and receive healing dreams. In Islamic tradition, dreams are categorized into 3 types: true dreams from God, bad dreams from the devil, and reflections of the soul. Dream interpretation is still widely practiced today in many Muslim cultures. Indigenous cultures around the world, including many in the Americas, also viewed dreams as spiritual journeys or messages from ancestors. So while details differ, many cultures saw dreams as a bridge between the real world and the spirit world, just like in ancient China. People in ancient China believed that natural signs, like the behavior of animals or changes in the weather, carried meaning. Let's look at how other cultures interpreted similar signs. In ancient Rome, priests called augurs watched the flight patterns of birds to decide if a day was lucky or not. This is very similar to how Chinese astrologers read bird behavior as omens of future events. In Celtic traditions, seeing a crow or raven was also considered a warning, often a sign of death or bad news. This matches the Chinese belief that a crow entering your house meant something bad was coming. In India, the appearance of certain animals at certain times, like a snake crossing your path or a lizard chirping, can still be seen as a warning or blessing, depending on the situation. In Native American cultures, animals like wolves, eagles, and owls are seen as spiritual messengers. Their appearances in dreams or real life are often taken very seriously. Nature as a messenger is a global idea. The difference lies in how people read the signs, but the belief that the universe speaks through animals and elements is nearly universal. In Chinese culture, ghosts are often seen as restless souls who didn't receive proper burial rites or died unfairly. This idea is also common around the world. In Japanese folklore, spirits known as yurei behave much like Chinese ghosts. They appear as pale, floating figures with long hair and are believed to be stuck between worlds due to unresolved emotions. In Western folklore, ghosts are also usually spirits who haven't moved on. Old castles in Europe are said to be haunted by spirits of betrayal, murder, or unfulfilled duty, very similar to Chinese ghost stories. In African traditional beliefs, spirits of the dead are highly respected. Ancestors are thought to guide and protect the living, but if ignored or angered, they can cause illness or misfortune. Again, just like Chinese beliefs about ancestors. In Latin America, festivals like Day of the Dead honor deceased loved ones with food, music, and altars, an idea that is very close to the Chinese Qingming festival, where people clean ancestors' graves and offer food and incense. In short, the fear and respect of ghosts and spirits is shared around the world. What changes is the rituals used to protect the living and honor the dead. Let's look at some shared rituals across cultures. Firecrackers and loud noises are used in China to scare away evil. In ancient Europe, church bells were rung to drive away demons. In India, fire and noise are used in weddings and festivals to chase off bad spirits. Red as a protective color is important in China, especially during festivals and weddings. In Hinduism, red also represents purity and power, and it's common in wedding clothing and symbols. Salt is seen as protective in both Western and Eastern traditions. In China, it was used in folk magic and purification rituals. In Europe, salt was thrown over the shoulder to blind evil spirits. Carrying charms is also universal. In China, people carry jade pendants or 5 blessing coins. In Western cultures, it might be a rabbit's foot or a 4-leaf clover. In India, black threads and small amulets are tied around babies' wrists for protection. Despite their different appearances, all these practices serve the same goal: to invite good fortune and keep away harm. So what makes ancient Chinese superstitions unique compared to other cultures? Integration with daily systems. In China, superstitions weren't just beliefs. They were built into the calendar, architecture, medicine, and government. Few cultures integrated the spiritual and the practical as deeply as China did. Emphasis on balance. The idea of yin and yang, and the belief that the universe operates best when in harmony, gave Chinese superstition a very systematic and philosophical base. Ancestor worship. While other cultures honor the dead, Chinese ancestor worship is deeply tied to family structure, moral values, and even political ideas. Many superstitions come from the desire to please or avoid angering ancestors. Feng shui and physical space. The idea that your home, office, or city can be designed to attract fortune and avoid disaster is a uniquely strong feature in Chinese tradition. These distinct qualities make Chinese superstition not just a set of beliefs, but a complex cultural system. As we've seen, humans across the world share a deep need to explain the unknown. Whether it's through numbers, dreams, ghosts, or rituals, cultures have developed superstitions and omens to feel more in control of life's surprises. But China stands out for how these beliefs became part of the structure of society. From emperors to farmers, from the stars to your front door. As China entered the modern age, especially from the late 19th century onward, ancient superstitions began to face new challenges. Scientific thinking, Western education, and modern medicine started to question ideas like ghosts causing illness or omens predicting earthquakes. For example, ancient Chinese beliefs said that eclipses happened because dragons were swallowing the sun, a cosmic warning from heaven. But by the early 1900s, schools began teaching the astronomical explanation, that an eclipse was caused by the moon passing in front of the sun. No gods or omens involved. However, Chinese superstitions have proved hard to destroy as they were deeply tied to traditional philosophies and religions, especially Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. Confucianism focuses on morality, order, and family values. It doesn't promote superstition directly, but its emphasis on ancestor worship and rituals made certain traditions, like funeral customs and grave cleaning, hard to separate from superstition. Taoism has always been closely connected to omens, the spirit world, and rituals. Taoist priests were often the ones performing ceremonies to banish ghosts, interpret dreams, or read fortunes. Many charms and talismans used in folk belief come from Taoist practice. Buddhism introduced new ideas about karma, reincarnation, and spiritual purity. Over time, it blended with Taoist and the folk beliefs. Buddhist monks might perform rituals for the dead, or advise people on spiritual protection. The result was a blended belief system that mixed philosophy with superstition. These three traditions created a strong cultural foundation for superstitions, making them part of everyday values, not just magical thinking. Today, China is one of the world's most technologically advanced countries. Skyscrapers, bullet trains, and AI are everywhere. But even with all this progress, ancient superstitions are still very much alive, especially in personal and family life. Why? One reason is cultural identity. Many people don't see these beliefs as irrational. They see them as traditions. Doing things a certain way brings comfort, respect for the past, and a sense of harmony. Another reason is that science can't explain everything. Even in modern societies, people still turn to astrology, lucky charms, and spiritual advice when facing uncertainty, just like their ancestors did. So, do educated people still believe in omens and superstitions? The answer is not always, but often more than you might expect. Surveys have shown that belief in astrology, lucky numbers, and spiritual rituals remains strong even among highly educated people in China. For example, many students still burn incense or wear charms before college entrance exams. Parents might consult fortune tellers when naming a newborn, regardless of their income or education level. University graduates may still avoid buying houses with the number 4 or move in on an auspicious day. This shows that belief isn't just about education. It's also about culture, family pressure, and personal comfort. In other words, many people know that these beliefs may not be scientific, but they choose to follow them anyway, just in case. Since the 1990s, traditional culture has seen a comeback in China. As the economy grew and people became more interested in their heritage, many ancient beliefs started to reappear in public. Temples were rebuilt. Festivals became more elaborate. People began to learn about the lunar calendar, zodiac signs, and ancient customs again. Not just for belief, but for connection and identity. TV shows and films often include superstitions as part of the story. Ghosts, curses, lucky rituals, and spiritual symbols appear in everything from horror movies to romance dramas. Online influencers now sell amulets, do fortune readings, or share feng shui tips on social media. Some have millions of followers. Even mobile apps provide daily luck ratings based on your Chinese zodiac sign. So while the form has changed, the core idea is still there. People want to feel prepared, protected, and connected to something greater. Ultimately, Chinese superstitions have not disappeared because they have always been able to adapt. They've survived emperors, revolutions, science, and globalization. They change with the times, moving from temples to apps, from villages to cities, from oral traditions to online videos. And even though many people no longer fear omens in the same way their ancestors did, they still turn to ancient wisdom when they feel uncertain. So whether it's avoiding the number 4 in a phone number, hanging a lucky charm in a car, or consulting a horoscope before a big decision, these old ideas still have power, not because they're proven, but because they're part of the story people tell about themselves and the world. Now, as we prepare to close this journey, ask yourself, have you ever changed plans because of a bad feeling? Do you have a lucky item or habit? Have you ever read a horoscope or hesitated to do something on a Friday the 13th? If the answer is yes, you've touched the same world that ancient Chinese people lived in, a world where unseen forces shape daily life and where signs and rituals help us find our way. Ancient Chinese superstitions may seem strange at first. Rituals to avoid ghosts, numbers that predict death, animals carrying hidden meanings. But once you step back, it all makes sense. These beliefs gave people a way to face a world they didn't fully understand. And maybe that's something we all share. When we look up at the sky and wonder what tomorrow brings, when we knock on wood after saying something risky, when we hold our breath before checking exam results, we're all doing something ancient. We're all reaching out into the unknown, hoping to find a little bit of control, a little bit of guidance, or just a little bit of luck. Thank you for coming on this journey with me tonight. I truly hope you go on to have a wonderful night's sleep and restful dreams. If you enjoyed this story, I'd appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, and maybe even comment on other places you would like to visit, and I'll try and make it happen. But for now, settle down, relax, close your eyes, and drift off. May sound sleep and beautiful dreams come to you tonight. You deserve it.